Good evening, everyone. Mike Banna here. Another episode of 62 Who Knew. Tonight we bring back Mrs. Laura Banna, founder of Compassionate Education, for the topic of Alzheimer's and all types of dementia. When she was on several months ago, it was one of our most popular shows. This is a topic that touches all families. That's what we got for you tonight. Welcome to 62 Who Knew. Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of 62 Who Knew. We have a very exciting show for you tonight. As always, I want to thank last week's guest, Miss Diane Daniels, one of the national experts, if not the national expert on Medicare, her very popular podcast, Medicare Nation. You should tune into that, subscribe to that. Her shows are always so fantastic. Thank you, Diane, for being here, and we can't wait for you to come back in November to tell us about the latest changes in Medicare again and what we can expect also in 2020. So before we get to our latest guest, or tonight's guest, who's one of my favorite, let me give a little synopsis, maybe learn how to speak. Let me give a synopsis of 62 Who Knew and what we're all about, because every week our audience is growing. Last week we were a little above just 90,000 viewers, which we're very proud of, and I thank you for that. But what is 62 Who Knew? The premise of 62 Who Knew is, as we approach the age of 62, whether it be my generation, I'm a little over 61 years old, my father, his father before him, everyone as we approach this part of life starts to think about retirement. Hopefully you've been thinking about it longer than that, but that magic number of 62 is when it really sinks in. Should I take my Social Security? Should I defer till a later age? Do I need to keep working? Do I really need long-term care insurance? Do I still need my life insurance? When do I get Medicare supplemental insurance? The topics are just endless, and they've always been the same as you approach the age of 62. You're dealing with your mortality for the first time in your life. Every generation has faced the same challenges except for my generation, the baby boomer generation. We have one more challenge, or one more hurdle, if you would. And that hurdle is the double-edged sword of longer lifespans. Today in this country, if you make it to 65 years old, just make it to 65, you have a 50-50 chance of making it to 90. And when you think about it, that's amazing. But like many double-edged swords, it's a mixed blessing. Less than 1% of this great country has the financial wherewithal to make it from 65 to 90 in a high quality of life. Not just quality of life, but quality of health, mentally, emotionally, financially. So the whole premise of this show, 62 Who knew I was going to be around this long, is to bring on guests, experts in their field, about Social Security, Medicare supplemental policies, long-term care insurance, reverse mortgages, health. Again, the list is endless, and that's what we do every week. And obviously, this topic has touched people's hearts because we're on just a little more than a year, and again, up to 90,000 viewers per week, which we're very proud of. And tonight's guest is no exception. She was on with us just a few months ago. Ms. Laura Banna is an expert in not just Alzheimer's, but all types of dementia. She is the founder of Compassionate Education, travels the country nationally to talk about this terrible disease that is has no prejudice, no bias. Doesn't make a difference if you're rich or poor, what color you are, what religion you are. This is a terrifying disease, and there are ways to deal with it. And we welcome back Mrs. Laura Banner. Welcome back, Laura.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate you having me again.
You know, the first time you were on, we have the benefit of living forever on the internet, but your show probably was the first show ever that we topped 50,000 viewers. And even though we're way past that, it does prove without a doubt that your topic, your expertise that you've chosen to help people with is something that touches everybody. Because that was a big mark for us to go past 50,000. And I have a feeling that we're going to pass 100,000 with this episode that you're on right now. So tell us what's new. Everything okay in your life? I mean,
everything is good.
Yes.
Everything is constantly in flux, but I guess that's what keeps it interesting.
Absolutely. And for those of you wondering that didn't see Laura's first show, yes, both our last name is Banner and we are related. And that's a disclosure. I'm related to her husband too, but I have more fun being related to her. So let's get right into this, because as we both know, the hour goes very quickly. Excuse me looking down, but my questions are right here. As this becomes more of a common thing and people discuss it more and more, and you're discussing it more over the country, I'd like you to tell us, are there any more problems, or what problems are really facing caretakers with this just terrible disease?
Well, just to review what we talked about last time, at least
Absolutely.
I think I covered it last time. Not only do I have Compassionate Education, which is the venue that I use to go out and educate and counsel not only people as they're going through formal education in medicine, but also when I go out to the public. I'm doing a lot of education and addressing questions, concerns for people that don't get an opportunity to get in front of a provider. I also have a clinic practice where I'm seeing patients not only for general neurology, but also specializing in dementia care. And out of that grew the need for a support group. So I've been running an Alzheimer's Association approved, endorsed support group now almost 3 years. We just became approved through the Alzheimer's Association this year, which was huge for us. It really opened up a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. So I did that because what I found was that when I was seeing patients in the clinic, their family members would sit there and I could just see their discomfort. They wanted to ask questions. They didn't want to make their loved one feel uncomfortable. And at the same time, as a caregiver, there are unique needs to their role. So in the support group, we get to talk about a lot of things. Sometimes it's just an opportunity to just vent, say what they did that worked, what they did that didn't work, what they did that they feel guilty about, and kind of just a confessional, if you will. So what I'm seeing more and more of is that as we are getting better at diagnosing dementia, and people are coming out from the woodwork saying, hey, I'm thinking this forgetfulness is beyond normal aging. You find people who, regardless of what their profession is, whether they are a stay-at-home mom or they're out and they're in the work environment, they suddenly put on a new hat. And that's being the eyes and ears first line for detecting something that's abnormal with their loved one. And that population has a lot of associated risks inherent to their role. For example, many people don't realize, if they've not already been in the role, once they're in the role, it's no surprise that many caregivers, regardless of their health status going into the role, often pass before the loved one they care for. Because what happens is it's emotionally draining, it's physically draining, it is all consuming. They ignore their own needs. Oftentimes they have a diagnosis that was never detected or made because they are so consumed with meeting their loved one's needs. So what has changed? What has changed is that I think there is more recognition, not where it needs to be, but certainly more recognition on the fact that caregivers have needs as well as the person they're caring for.
You know, every time a professional like you brings up that particular topic, every time it gives me the chills. You know, I get goosebumps. You know, we're fortunate enough to have some of the finest long-term care insurance experts in the country on the show, Mr. Peter Gelbwax, Mark Goldberg, Carol Golden. These are names that the entire long-term care industry, Mr. Bill Comfort, are aware of. And the first time that each of them brought up, and I never remember the statistic, that makes me a bad host, but when the caregiver literally predeceases the person they were giving the care to because of the stress involved. And I don't think there would be any disease, you know, more than dementia, that would be more stressful. It just gives me the chills to think that that's what you're starting. You're, you know, and it is usually the woman. It really is. It's usually the daughter or the wife that says, okay, I'll put my career or my life on hold and take care of mom or take care of dad or my husband. The stress of a caregiver is a staggering thing.
It is. And you're right. Traditionally, it is the female. What I'm seeing more recently is it's the husband, it's the son.
Mm-hmm.
It's heartbreaking. I saw a patient this week actually, and she's advanced, but still able to communicate. She has a unique variant with her diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And she has what we call rapid decay of information. So literally every 5 seconds, she is asking the same question, but to her, she's never asked it before. And so each and every time they come in, and at this point, a lot of it truly is just a social visit to give the husband an opportunity to get out and go do something, change that environment, for me to check in on him, even though he's not technically my patient. In my mind, they both are. And he told me, I will care for her till the end until I'm no longer able to. And he does everything possible to make her life as normal as he possibly can. And I happened to ask, and I was so not prepared for his answer, but I said, how long does it take you to get her ready every day to go out? And he said, 3 hours.
That's amazing to me.
3 hours.
It's amazing.
And how can that not take a toll on someone?
Yeah, of course.
And the caregiver role instantly, no one looks forward saying, hey, I'm going to be a caregiver in my later years or at some point in my life. But they embrace it and they master it. And they go through this difficult journey, trying to follow a moving target, never knowing if what they're doing is right, just doing what they think is right, which in my mind makes it right.
Right.
And they need help. And we are not prepared.
No.
We're not prepared as individuals. We're not prepared as a society, as a nation, to care for the people with this diagnosis because we know where it's headed. The only thing we don't know is what that journey is going to look like. We know what the end point is. And how can we, in my mind, how can we be better? Because we have a lot of room to be better. How can we address the family needs, the individual with the diagnosis, the caretaker? It breaks my heart, the things that I hear each and every day. So what has changed? I think that as a profession, we are getting better at recognizing that it's not just the patient. I advocate all the time in my support group, in my clinic visits, that although I cannot truly treat the caregiver, I tell them, go ahead, you need to, plug yourself in with a provider, because at some point you're going to probably pick up the phone and say, I need help. I need help because I can't handle the anxiety. I can't handle the lack of sleep, the physical demands, the attacks, whatever it is they're dealing with. So that has changed. We're talking about it more. And I think that's a positive about a really devastating situation. What else has changed? Unfortunately, therapy has not changed.
Really? It hasn't improved?
No, there have been a lot of drugs that they have put through different trial phases, and for one reason or another have not turned out to give the results that they've hoped for. We're hopeful. We have to keep trying.
I'll try and get an update from my friends in the Weitzman Institute that I know are very, very close to huge breakthroughs there in Jerusalem, and I'll try and get a an update on that and get that to you. As I think I said the first time you were on, I would love to have you and them and a long-term care expert on at the same time, all three of you. But you also brought something up that I live personally and I know is very challenging. Eventually the caregiver, when it's a loved one, not a professional, is going to call out for help. But sometimes that's a hard decision. When it's your mom, your dad, your wife or husband, whoever it may be, you want to be the person to do that. Intellectually, somebody else might do it better, but emotionally, you want to be that person. I think that's another barrier we have to get through. I remember when I got my dad, professional help. I won't say I waited way too long, but I probably waited a little too long because I wanted to take care of my dad. Once I had the professional help in the house, I realized I probably did Dad a little misservice, wanting to do it myself. It's a hard barrier for someone you love.
Very hard barrier. And so many children are asked to promise a parent that's passing, that they will keep their other parent at home.
Yes.
And I understand why they ask that of their children, but it is truly such an added burden to put on their heart. And I don't think they would ask that if they understood what they were asking. Which, you just brought up long-term care. That is an area that needs fixing, in my opinion. It needs to become affordable. Most people don't understand it. Most people have no idea what it is until they are at the point where they are searching for placement for a loved one or a spouse. And at that point, it's
too late.
It's so expensive. What are you going to do?
Yeah. It always gets back to making that plan for long-term care, which our other experts speak about so often. Once you have it, to use an old adage, you can't fix the barn door after the horses leave. You sort of have to fix it before, especially the white horse, because the white horse really tries to escape at all times. We'll explain that to our viewers one other day, or if we have time later. But the truth of the matter is, when you're in your 40s, 50s, you should be looking at a long-term care plan, a long-term care insurance plan with a long-term care insurance specialist, expert. So when this does happen to you, you can afford it. It's staggering to me how people don't realize that. You can't call, your insurance person for more fire insurance while the house is on fire. Everybody knows that, but they don't plan on their health the same way.
Well, and to that point, what I'm also seeing is a trend in younger and younger patients coming in with cognitive issues.
Really?
People in their late 40s, people in their early 50s. I'm not sure if I had mentioned it before, but it certainly bears repeating. We have early onset and late onset disease, and 65 years of age is the defining line. So if someone is diagnosed prior to 65, that's considered early onset. If they're diagnosed after 65, and diagnosed, maybe I should say, when the symptoms began, prior to or after 65 is considered late onset, not to be confused with late stage.
Right.
So I am seeing people who are working professionals at the peak of their career, maybe not even at the peak, still rising to the top, who are coming in with symptoms concerning for dementia. And we put them through the testing, and unfortunately they are coming back that they have dementia. There was actually an article that was forwarded to me last night. Real quick, I'll share the story, the gist of it. This is a former football player who began playing tackle football as a young child, which a lot of young boys, maybe some young girls now are doing. And then he continued it, played middle school, played high school, played college, never went pro. When he finished college ball, he was a very smart, or still is a very smart man, went to med school.
Whoa.
Became an OBGYN. And at 42 years of age, he had to retire because of confusion. He is testifying in front of Congress now, trying to make tackle football for youth under 12 a thing of the past, because what they are believing he has, which can't be confirmed until post-mortem autopsy, is CTE, which is that repetitive head injury. It's a chronic problem that slowly presents until you're in the thick of it. And it is devastating. It is heartbreaking that people who were doing something that we all rallied around, and it was enjoyable, it was sport, it was family gatherings, let's go watch the game, now has robbed these individuals of their future. So at 42, he had to retire because he couldn't remember how to do the most basic things in his profession. He said he doesn't remember his wedding. He doesn't remember the birth of his daughter.
Oh, that's so
It should
sad.
alarm everyone.
Yeah, well, we don't want to get into this part of it because, you and I and Bob have had enough, personal conversations. The world has gone cuckoo. There's no way to get around it. Can you imagine? And I don't want to get into this too much. I want to get back to other trends and things that are happening in your industry. But can you imagine 1,000 years from now, people looking back going, yeah, there was a sport where the goal was to bang heads with each other,
Right.
and it took
Or to
them
knock each other out.
right, and it took them 100 years to figure out it causes brain damage. For a society that can leave the planet or do virtual reality or put a computer chip on the head of a pencil, we haven't figured out yet that our children banging heads with other children could have a bad effect on their adulthood. When I say that out loud, I almost think it's too stupid to say.
No, we don't see what we don't want to see.
Yes. Yeah, we can be a blind society.
Yes.
It's just, like I said, when you say it out loud, it's almost pure stupidity.
Yes, I agree.
So is there genetic testing? Because there is, I'm going to leave the studio and go right for it. You and I always fool around. And when I talk, again, for our audience, again, Laura is not here because she's my cousin. Laura's here, because she's a national expert on this and tours the country, speaking about it. But her husband, who is officially my first cousin, but more like a brother, we always laugh with each other that we'll get up and go to the refrigerator and get there and go, why did we come up here again? Or go to the kitchen to get something, come back, sit down, and go, this is not what I even wanted to go get. What am I doing with this? And we'll fool around and go, whoops, there's the early dementia, jumping in. And we smile, but I know in the back of my mind, when I say that to one of my kids, I'm not really smiling. I'm thinking, wow, I got up to get an iced tea and I came back with an apple. How did that happen? Is there genetic testing for this?
So there is. It will tell you if you're at risk. It will not tell you if, in fact, you are going to develop the disease.
Mm-hmm.
With the Ancestry.coms, the 23andMe, you can get the DNA testing. But again, what are you going to do with that information? It's not going to tell you that you will develop the disease. So what we know is that forgetfulness is a normal part of aging. Let's say you go ahead and you get that genetic testing and it shows that you have a predisposition for the development of Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, now what?
Now you're 50, 55 years old, and you go to the refrigerator for that iced tea and you come back with the apple. Uh-oh, is that the beginning? What's
Right.
next? Am I going to forget my kids' names? Am I going to forget to pay my bills? Am I going to take the keys away so I can't drive any longer? And that anxiety only produces more forgetfulness. So to answer your question, yes, there is genetic testing, but it is not confirmatory that you will develop the disease. And I don't think at this point, my personal opinion, I don't think at this point that it is a wise decision to move forward with the testing. Because I think that if you know it's in your DNA, are you going to still live your best life? I hate that expression, but at this point, I think it really is appropriate. Or are you going to live in fear? And what happens if at some point, some insurance company gets a hold of that? I don't know. Could they deny you something? Maybe long-term care insurance? Could they jack up your premium? I just don't think it's a good idea. Not at this point. What I would much rather see is people make the assumption that we can all develop it, which we can, because it's in your DNA potentially, but it also can just be spontaneous. So how about if we change our lifestyle so that we can do what is within our control to reduce risk factors? Get up, get moving, be more physically active. If you want to have some alcohol, don't do it in excess. Look at things that Do not challenge your mind. So World Health Organization came out with recommendations in ways that you can reduce your risk factors for developing mild cognitive impairment, which often is a precursor to a dementia or a dementia. And we know that medication does not stop it. It manages it and hopefully slows it down.
Mm-hmm.
That was not listed on the top of their recommendations. It was physical activity, cognitive stimulation, and eating well. You don't have to be a fanatic, but look at what's happening right now. Look at the lifespan of a chicken. Okay,
Yeah,
so how can that be good for us? So they do say that organic foods are best. I think that that is financially unfeasible for a lot of people.
It's the truth.
And again, is that just a label that's being put on all foods? And we're really not scrutinizing what truly deserves the title. I don't know, not my area. But I do know that if I'm eating a lot of red meat and a lot of fried foods, getting a lot of inflammation, and inflammation is not good. If I'm eating a lot of sweets, which people who have memory impairment tend to crave, again, it's giving you a lot of brain inflammation, which impairs cognitive function. So maybe if I eat a well-balanced diet or a Mediterranean diet, which is even better, I'm putting good things in my body, which in turn will allow for optimal brain function. I'm getting up, getting moving, improving the blood flow in your brain. That is great. Getting good amount of sleep. You know, it's a misnomer that as we get older, we don't need to eat as much and we don't need to sleep as much. Yes, we do.
More. I would think you need more rest.
Right. We need to constantly be challenging our minds instead of retiring or thinking about retiring and really doing nothing new, learning nothing new, not creating any stimulation. How about if we go out and we challenge ourselves and positively stress our minds to strengthen those neural connections in the brain? It's called neuroplasticity. It's about strengthening the connections and keeping everything in the best operating function that it can possibly have, versus sitting on the couch, going ahead and just using the remote and flipping the channels and really doing mindless activities. That's not good.
Well, that's fine. I know what you're saying is true, but this disease and this type of risk management that you're talking about, unfortunately, is coming at a time where every survey and every study says our young people, and we're guilty of it too in my age bracket, but that young people today are spending so much more time in front of their computer or Xbox, and
Yes.
I'm guilty. It's not just the 400 stations that I like on my TV. It's everything from CBS All Access to everything
Right.
that you can imagine that does keep us, not stimulated. Well, I can't say not stimulated because you're laughing or you're
Not
this,
challenged.
but certainly not challenged.
Right.
It's
Well,
mental pablum.
they call it a smartphone.
Yeah.
And, I laugh all the time and I say, absolutely, because without it, I wouldn't be smart. But the reality is, it is robbing us of the need to remember.
That's
We know
exactly
how to
right.
access information, but not remember information. I can tell you my phone number. I can tell you my husband's phone number. I can tell you my kids' phone numbers. I can tell you my childhood address, my childhood phone number. I can't tell you my best friend's phone number. I can just tell you, to push the name on my contact list.
Exactly. I'm worse.
And
Yeah, I'm worse than that. I can tell you my addresses and everything and phone numbers from when I was little, but even my kids, I don't know their phone numbers. I just hit speed dial.
how about spelling?
Oh, spelling is
What has
ridiculous.
happened to that skill?
No.
We don't remember how to spell because we have spell check,
Yeah.
right?
Or even have a nice writing. I used to have a nice signature, or
Yeah.
anything. Now when I have to write a letter and I don't want to, use my computer, I want to do the personal touch. It looks like I'm in, first grade. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think that it's not just one cause, but it is where society is moving. We are overstimulated. We're not taking time to take care of ourselves. We are not engaging in our environment. We're engaging in this little device that's in our hand, and we panic if we don't have good reception. We panic if the
Oh, yeah.
battery is low.
Oh, that's so
We
true.
always have it. I'm guilty of it. If I get in the car, in fact, the other day, someone hijacked my cell number. So I actually had to drive 35 minutes from home or from work to home. Something I used to do all the time without a cell phone.
Right.
And I thought, what if I get a flat tire? What if I need to make a phone call? What if, what if, what if? I thought, this is ridiculous.
It is really amazing. Yeah, I have done some crazy things only because I've left my phone somewhere in panic that I couldn't be without it.
Yeah. How silly, right?
To a degree,
So,
yeah.
you look at the youth, and I don't mean to pick on them. They are a victim of technology.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't know how to talk. They don't know how to have active conversations. They don't know how to have inflection in their voice, because they know how to put an emoji on a text message, and that should convey it. So I think if we don't do something about this, the pandemic that I would consider dementia to be right now is only the tip of the iceberg as these younger generations start to get older. As you know, I go out and I lecture, and two of my children attended one of my lectures. And at the end, they were just there for support. At the end, they came up and they were panicked, and they said, we need to change what we're doing right now, because we have dementia up close and personal in my family. And they do not want that to be them. But we need to change things.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, it's not, it is the younger people, but I got to say, although I'm 61 now, the last 10 to 12 years of my life, I've gotten more dependent on it as well. It's just so easy to find out that, supposedly I'm a mortgage expert. People sometimes call me up with questions, and as they're asking me, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I actually don't know the answer to that. And I Google it, and I mean, you go to Google for everything in the world. I don't know if there's anything you can't get from Google. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, and even just getting up and getting moving. I'm not trying to pick on Alexa. It just happens to be, the brand I have.
Right.
I don't even get up to turn on the lights or turn off the lights.
That's right.
Or turn off the music. How much lazier of a society can we be?
Oh, we can get much lazier. Yes.
Frightening.
Yeah, it is. It is frightening. Before I go to my next topic, did you say earlier that sweets are not good for your memory?
Yes.
Like chocolate?
Yes. So what we know, I know.
John, just call John's my producer. John, just call an ambulance now. Yeah, just dial 911 for me now, because I don't know if I'll make it back to my office. Oh my God.
So when I am meeting a patient and their family for the first time, I have my usual go-to questions, and they always are amazed. Like, how did she know that? It's because it's so common. So lots of theories why it is. Nonetheless, regardless of the theory, we know that when people have memory impairment, they crave sweets. They can be very sneaky about how they get their sweets. Sometimes they put it right out there. But so there is this belief that there is something called diabetes type 3. It is separate from your peripheral blood sugar. So it doesn't only happen in the setting of someone who is pre-diabetic or adult onset diabetic or type 1 diabetic. Forget all of that. What happens is people crave sweets, and they believe that there's something about insulin resistance in the brain. And as we eat the sweets, blood sugar goes up, and then also the inflammation in the brain starts to increase. And when you've just overindulged in cake and dessert and you just feel that bloat, well, when you're feeling that abdominal bloat, that bloat is also happening in your brain. And so you have these highs and lows, and the inflammation impairs memory. And it is vicious, the appetite that people will have for sweets. They will forgo all meals and have just sweets.
So if you find yourself like, in the men's room of a bowling alley at 3 a.m. buying Hershey bars at street prices,
totally normal.
This is a bad sign, right?
Probably.
One of the things that we spoke about on your first appearance here that I know, I learned a lot, but many of my friends and many of our viewers typed in and said they learned a lot from. I think of dementia, I think of Alzheimer's. But you taught us on your first appearance that even though that might be for the layman, there are other types of dementia. I mean, Alzheimer's is on the tip of everybody's tongue because it's on, it's in the newspaper. It's this. It's a
Right.
cliche. You forgot something. Early Alzheimer's. I'd like to I know you have a little more you want to talk about, and we're doing halfway decent on time. The hour
Okay.
goes so quickly. We only have 20 minutes left. It's ridiculous. But touch on that a little because not everybody that has a little dementia has Alzheimer's.
Right. So the way I like to explain it is this: imagine an umbrella, and imagine the actual top of the umbrella is the word dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And underneath dementia, you have Alzheimer's, you have vascular, you have Lewy body, you have Parkinson's related dementia, you have multi-infarct dementia, you have all sorts of different types of dementia. So each of those different types are a form of dementia, but they're not interchangeable with the term let me back up. So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, but you can have dementia without having Alzheimer's because your dementia might be a vascular dementia or your dementia might be a Lewy body dementia. So they don't all act the same. What they all have in common, why they're all under that dementia umbrella, is because they all have abnormal memory loss, more than you would expect for someone of similar age, that it is to the point where it is interfering with their quality of life. So yes, unfortunately, people use those two terms interchangeably. They absolutely are not the same thing. Did that clarify it a little bit more?
I know it clarified it absolutely, but just in a few minutes, you mentioned a few different types of dementia. Could you just, for our viewers, explain those few different types?
Sure. So Alzheimer's is the loss of, well, most of them are loss of short-term memory first. People will often say their long-term memory is great. It usually is until the late stages of all of the types of dementia. So with Alzheimer's, you're having loss of short-term memory. Eventually, it is progressing into long-term memory. You have loss of vocabulary, communication, and then bodily function memory. You forget how to swallow at the end of an Alzheimer's disease, for example. Vascular dementia is different. Vascular dementia is when you have impaired blood flow. So you have increased cholesterol, increased blood sugar, you have high blood pressure that is not well controlled, maybe some sleep apnea that is not treated with a CPAP. And as a result, what happens is you have loss of blood flow, diminished blood flow to the brain, and as a result, those areas of the brain die. So when you have a little bit, which is part of normal aging, that's fine. The brain is very accommodating to that. When you have a lot of it, then really what you're saying is you have a lot of brain tissue that has died, is no longer viable, and the brain cannot accommodate all of that. So as a result, you start having issues. Someone with vascular dementia may have hallucinations. They often will move very slowly. They will have what we call a cognitive delay. You ask a question or give a command, and there is a very uncomfortable pause between when you ask it and when they respond. Lewy body dementia became very notable when Robin Williams was diagnosed with it. Lewy body dementia is a very difficult diagnosis to actually get because it fluctuates. A person will go one moment from being completely lucid and appropriate to the next minute, the expression here in Georgia is talking out of their head. And the family becomes very confused because as they think that there is some type of an onset of dementia going on, then they'll have a normal conversation. And so the family really questions themselves. And of course, as always, when they come to the clinic for evaluation, there is a tendency for people to perform at their best level. And so oftentimes they will be completely appropriate in the clinic setting. They walk out the door and they're talking out of their head again. That diagnosis is marked by hallucinations as well as these fluctuations in cognition. Interestingly enough, the hallucinations are typically small children, small animals.
Really?
Then you have Parkinson's related dementia. So on this continuum of Parkinson's, you have Lewy body dementia, which is the proteins that are found in Parkinson's typically condensed to certain parts of the brain, dispersed throughout the brain. The person with Lewy body dementia will often mimic Parkinson's. They look Parkinsonian. They may have a flat expression, Maybe they shuffle their feet, maybe they fall a lot. Oftentimes, but not always, 2 to 3 years after the diagnosis, they will develop Parkinson's or become more Parkinsonian.
Oh,
Then you have the person who first develops Parkinson's disease, memory is intact. Down the line, after the diagnosis of Parkinson's, they may develop a dementia. And then it's Parkinson's related dementia. So it's a later development after the diagnosis of Parkinson's. And it's all on that continuum. Lewy body first, then Parkinson's. And then you could develop Parkinson's related dementia.
oh, okay. Any more?
There are several others. One that is noteworthy is frontotemporal dementia. This one's a little bit different in that the memory is relatively preserved. It tends to affect people in earlier decades, in their 40s and 50s, instead of typically 60s, 70s, 80s. This one is marked by disinhibition. They have loss of planning, loss of what we call executive function. So poor judgment, filters gone, verbal outbursts, behaviors that are not typical of them.
Filter's gone. Do we know anybody that doesn't have a filter?
Nope, absolutely.
You said something earlier that just amazed me. I don't know if there's any studies, and maybe I misunderstood, but one of the versions that you were talking about is that common hallucinations are small children and animals.
Yes.
I don't know why that strikes me as so unusual. Is there a reason why people
I'm not
of
aware
all?
of what hallucination is.
Wow.
I will tell you that most people hear the word hallucinations and jump to something that is frightening. If
Yeah.
you talk to people who have hallucinations, for the most part, they're not bothersome. We do not treat them until they are frightening or bothersome to the individual. Some people enjoy them. Hallucinations are fascinating,
Well,
but yes, Lewy body is marked by small children, small animals. I've had people in clinic tell me that their loved one will say things like, "Don't walk there, you're going to step on the children," or "Look at the
oh my.
squirrels crawling the wall." Yeah.
I'm having a hallucination now of hearing a dog barking in the background. Is that real, or is that just my?
Fortunately, it is reality here
That
at
is
my
real.
house.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Or is that mom trying to get out of the basement?
probably. Just saying.
Well, again, to me, this it would be an understatement to say I'm sure the great majority of our population, would choose almost any other disease to go from rather than something that robs you of your memories and your children. And I just can't even fathom it.
It's the disease of two deaths.
Yeah, you said that the first time, and that gave me the chills that time, and it gave me the chills this time. What else are you seeing? I mean, when you first came on, you were just starting really compassionate education. You've done, so many national speeches now. You have your workshops. What else are you seeing when the family comes in? Because, it just affects every generation of the family when dad or grandma or grandpa have it.
They are looking for resources. They are looking for connections. I would highly encourage people to join a support group. It is therapeutic. It is a good source of support, great networking for ideas. Be proactive. Everyone, like I said, everyone should live their life assuming, because it's true, that they could develop it. Not to put the fear in people, but we need to get
Right.
up and get. Challenge yourself. My daughter Kelly and I just finished writing a book. I don't even think you were aware of this yet.
No.
We are in the editing phase right now, and it is basically a coaching manual of, hey, you know what, let go of the past, look to the future, no boundaries. You see a goal, go out and achieve it, go out and attempt it. Just the actual process of attempting it is therapeutic.
Absolutely. People don't realize that.
No, I mean, it's not just about the destination. The journey is really where the reward is. So that will be something that we are looking forward to getting out to the public. That'll be available on our website in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks. What else can I tell you about?
Well, I think that's also another issue that's plaguing the young, which is the instant gratification again of picking this up and getting an answer. But no, I guess sometimes you just got to be older to be smarter. but achieving a goal, which is a wonderful thing, but the fun of achieving the goal is getting there. Once you achieve it, I don't care what your goal is. You go, yeah, that was good. Now
Mhm.
what? It was the fun of getting there. There's a couple of things that, the younger generations don't get today. They're very afraid of failure. But, this is also a cliche, but people don't realize how true it is. You don't fail till you quit. As long as you
Right.
don't quit, you have not failed. And I'm not picking on the younger generation because they're a staggering generation. Their technical warehouse, their savvy is incredible, but they're not getting out enough. It is all this.
And it's
And
unfortunate. Not only is it all that, but that is not real. It's what they want people to believe
yes.
is their reality. So they're robbing themselves on so many different levels.
Oh, even in the professional world, people are getting fired by text or email. People are being promoted by text or email, and on both sides of that scale, good and bad. Taking the emotion out of letting someone go, whether it's for cause or not. That person has a family; they have to feed their family, and the person delivering the message doesn't want to deal with that grief, so they do it in an email. But the opposite is true too. When you're promoting someone, or it doesn't have to be in the job world or in the business world. You're developing or delivering good news. Your endorphins are firing. You're happy. There's warmth.
Yes.
You're giving good news. You're not, those endorphins are not firing over a screen. I'm sorry. They're just not.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And you're right on so many levels. We know what we need to do, but we just haven't done it yet.
Well, yeah, that's a story. I think that's the story of everybody's life for a very long time. I remember complaining, that I actually had to get up from my desk or my room or wherever, the dining room table when I was doing my homework, to actually walk somewhere in my house now to get the encyclopedia to look
Yeah.
something up. And now we have to have the fastest iPhone possible just so we can look things up a quarter of a second quicker.
Right.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's actually a staggeringly good thing and a staggeringly terrible thing all at
Use with
once.
discipline. Right. Absolutely.
So, your workshops, are they local right there for you and where, in Georgia?
Right now they are. Right now they are. We're hoping eventually, I'm working on a couple of different programs that can be mass produced and sent out remotely. And I'm always available by contact through the phone or the internet to do consulting as well as going out. And like I said, I love lecturing. This is actually something that probably you're unaware of. I don't think Bob has shared with you. Um, so I'm trying to take my own advice and I'm going back to school.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I saw the jaw drop there.
Yeah. And what are you going to be when you grow up?
Well, I want to stay in the field. I want to challenge myself. I want to keep that stimulation going. And I want to bring more value to the people that I am trying to inform. So I'm actually going back for my PhD.
That is fantastic. Congratulations. And
Thanks.
have we put the website up? I'm looking into my camera. I'm not looking at the
Oh,
screen. Let's get the website up. It is www.compassionateeducation.com. Have you ever thought of doing any, webinar sessions? Or do you think it would, because I think people all over the country might want to tune in and bring you up on the screen and have a workshop, or do you think it loses something by you not being there personally? But I mean, a live, not a pre-recorded, but a
right.
live workshop in Florida, in California, right there from your office in Georgia. Have you ever thought of
So
doing something like that?
I have thought about it. I haven't done it yet. I'm actually somewhere in between that and a podcast. Both are kind of up in the air right now for me, trying to weigh the pros of each and see which one would meet the needs the most for me. But yes, there is for me, and I know you love public speaking as well. There is nothing like being in front of the live audience. I
Yeah.
actually just did a keynote speech for a nursing summit that was videoed and then went live this week and was able to reach 6,000 viewers. So it'll be interesting to see the feedback that comes from that because these are people in the field. What is it that they
Exactly.
think they could benefit from most? But absolutely, any of the viewers for 62 Who Knew, please reach out to me through my website, compassionateeducation.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. I post several times a week and that is compassionate_education. And just trying to provide tidbits of information. And I always respond, usually within an hour. If I'm in clinic, it may be a couple of hours, but I try to stay on top of both of them. On the website, I am constantly updating articles, information. There's a lot of FAQ information there. The information is available. You just need to know how to find it. So please feel free to check my site. Hopefully it will direct you to other sites that you can get more information. Or like I said, I'm always available. If someone wants to reach out, has a question, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, there's no doubt we should put a link to compassionateeducation.com on 62whoknew.com. So this way our viewers could get right to you. Let's do that in the next couple of weeks. I'm anxious, well, as you know, we're going to be starting, our national podcast. We are behind schedule on that. What else is new? But we'll be starting our national podcast probably right around the first of the year. And of course, you're going to be a regular on that. And it seems to be the way the world, or at least not just the younger generation, but younger and middle generation seem to be gleaming their information now, from the podcast world, which is amazing to me, but everything's amazing to me because I'm a dinosaur.
Seasoned. You're well seasoned.
Oh boy, am I well seasoned. Have you ever been on a podcast?
I have not.
All right. You know what? Without a doubt, I will do an email introduction for you and Diane Daniels. Diane has been our guest 4 or 5 times, and 4 times, and actually jumped in one day when I had a problem and couldn't come here, and she was the host, and she did an absolute great job. She has a huge following. She's www.medicarenation, and I will give you that email introduction today when I get back to my office, because you should definitely you need to be a guest on a lot of people's podcasts, because that'll help you decide whether you want to be a podcast person, but it'll also help you start to develop a following before you start your own podcast.
Right. Makes sense. And, I don't know how much time is left, but
we're still good. We got about 5 minutes, so go.
Well, laughter's some of the best medicine, as you know, and
yes.
Unless you have any other questions, you might want to just take this second to tell about the white horse.
Okay. So when we had our terrible hurricane, what was it, Elena? What was our terrible hurricane?
Irma?
No.
Okay.
Was it Irma? Which is hard to believe. That was it was about a year and a half ago at this point. Laura and Bob were actually out on a cruise. Poor them. They were trapped on a cruise ship in a very calm sea. What, a 7-day cruise turned into a 2-week cruise?
Pretty much.
Yeah, and people think they're suffering all over the world. But they were kind enough to give a recluse, to give their home to us. When I say us, my entire family. So we drove because I lived on the water, and we were in an evacuation zone. So we all drove to their beautiful home in Georgia, which is on beautiful acreage. And they, to my knowledge, had 4 horses, even though I've been there a lot, and I only saw 3 horses. So yes, in the few minutes remaining, I will tell what you and your husband terribly did to supposedly one of your favorite relatives. So they actually coordinated this with my children who were coming with me. And on the way there, Laura's husband, my cousin/brother, calls me and said, look, when you get there, as long as you're going to be there, because the hurricane was going to come to Georgia too, but it was hitting directly where I live in Florida. Make sure the 3 horses are in the stall, out of the stall. Don't worry, I'll call you. But we have a 4th horse that Laura just bought. It's her favorite. It's young. It's all white. Please make sure, because it's young, it could get really wild during a storm, and it would break Laura's heart if that horse were to get away. So I said, no problem. As soon as I get to your house, I will check on the white horse. So, of course, what was a 9-hour drive turned into like a 17-hour drive because everybody was living in the state of Florida. But we get there at night, and Laura's incredible mom is there waiting for us with food and everything, and it's raining, and I'm tired. But I promise, so I say to my kids, even though it's dark, I got to run out to the barn. They have a beautiful barn, and make sure the white horses are right, because this is Laura's favorite horse, and Bob said I have to do that. Well, the kids say to me, and these are not little kids, these are adults, these little shits that were in on this joke, said, no, Dad, you stay. It's been such a long drive. We'll go check the 4 horses, but we'll make sure Laura's favorite white horse is okay. So they go out in the rain. They come back and go, all the horses are fine, especially the white one. Now, what was this? This was probably a Thursday. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my cousin Bob calls. Michael, I'm watching the weather there. I see the horses are running in the, on the pasture, but I don't see the white horse. Can you go make sure it's okay? I go to get up. One of my kids goes, no, sit, Dad. They have such a beautiful home. I'm sitting in front of a fireplace. I'm watching this 75-inch, what was it, 4D TV. I go, okay, you go check it. This happens day after day. Finally, they come back from their cruise. They land in Fort Lauderdale. They're now just hours away from here, from their home. And Bob says, look, we're going to be there in a few hours. I'm really, really nervous. Make sure the white horse is okay. This time the kids don't volunteer. So they come out with me and I walk out and I look in the pasture. How many acres is it?
7.
7 acres. So this is no small thing. I mean, I look and I'm around and I don't know, I see the 3 beautiful brown horses galloping. There was a lot of damage to their house. Trees were down. I go, where's the white horse? So one of my kids go, well, maybe it's in the barn. So I walk in the barn. I also don't know at this point that I'm being videoed. My daughter is videoing me. So I go in the barn. I don't see the white horse. I walk around in the sludge and in the mud, ruining my Nikes, by the way. And I look in the back of the barn. There's no white horse. I start to freak because this is Laura's favorite horse and I love her dearly. I can't believe I lost Laura's house. I'm actually using vile language. I'm going, oh my God, they're going to be here any minute. I have to find this white horse. So I jump into my car, which happens to be a Corvette. My daughter goes, where are you going in your car? I go, I'm going to drive around. Everybody has horses. I'll find the white horse. It's probably out on the road. You'll come back and get the car. I'll ride the horse back. I'm panicking. I'm throwing F-bombs because I lost the horse. Well, I get so aggravated that one of the kids says to me, Dad. I go, what? There is no white horse. I go, well, that's the effing problem. There's no white horse. I got to go get it. They go, no, there never was a white horse. Bob and Laura created this before we got here to fool you. There's only 7 seconds left, but my loving cousin brother put that video on Facebook, which is why I love him. No, we're out of time. I can't believe the story took so... What?
How was the journey of the horse?
Yeah, the journey, it was great. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Laura. Love you, and I'll talk to you next week.
Love you.
Bye-bye.